Hello there and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025 and all that fluffy stuff, whatever. You know, man, how it goes. Like, we could just skip over that. We're friends. We're buddies here. We go back years at this point. So anyway, new year, same Rafael, same Not Your Average Globetrotter. It is another Friday night, so let's just get started and roll that intro. As some of you may have already heard, that there is a ban that is coming to Italy, well, specifically Milan, Italy, on smoking in public. And somehow to me, the idea of walking into an Italian city without the smell of cigarettes everywhere is like saying, oh, you're going to walk into Santa's workshop and it's not going to smell like gingerbread cookies. There are certain smells that go with certain places. There are just facts of life that have to be accepted. But it would seem as though the local government of Milan would possibly disagree with that opinion. I've seen a bunch of articles from different outlets online, but we're just going to look at CNN. I know, CNN, whatever. And no, because I have certain opinions about CNN doesn't mean that I'm a fan of Fox either. Just because I don't like one doesn't mean I'm a fan of the other. So don't make any assumptions here. In this article written by Barbie Lazianadu, Italy's fashion capital Milan introduces country's toughest rules on smoking. Oh no, the world is over. How's anybody gonna get any fresh air now? Cigarettes have long been associated with fashion, so much so that they remained an occasional feature on runways. Smoking, like the color black, seems to never go out of style in the fashion world. And again, this is what I'm saying here. Santa's workshop without the smell of fresh gingerbread cookies. Same thing. Definitely the same thing. Going back to the article, but stylish or not, as of January 1st, 2025, smoking is outlawed in all public places, including streets. In Milan, Italy's financial and fashion capital, meaning anyone who lights up outside faces fines between $41 and $249, 40 euros and 240 euros. And I have to wonder, in a city of over 1 million people, I think it's about 1.3 million people, how is it even going to be possible to enforce anything like this? It's like hundreds of thousands of smokers, I'm sure, just within Milan alone. I can't help but wonder if there's going to be a new special unit, the Anti-Smoking Brigade. Whatcha? Rip those cigarettes right out of your mouth mid-puff. The nicotine will never be the same again. Coming to a Milan near you, January 1st, 2025. But anyway, let's get back to the article here. The move marks the toughest smoking ban in Italy, where nearly a quarter of the population smokes, according to the country's health ministry. Honestly, I'd be shocked if it were that low. I mean, maybe it is, but I have a difficult time believing it's that low. Maybe it's the amount of people who actually claim and report that they do smoke, but I guess there's ways of tracking that. Like if you buy cigarettes in Italy from a machine, you do have to insert your ID card or your health card, some type of chipped card to show that you're above the legal age. If you're buying it from a store where it's just someone behind a counter, it's a bit of a different sort of situation. But there are ways, I guess, you could track sales and who's buying and how many people are smoking and specifically who is smoking. But going back to the article, the only exception is when people are in isolated places at least 10 meters from other people. To me, that just somehow... I mean, when we're talking about a city like Milan, yes, can you get 10 meters away from another person? For sure. But when we're talking about cities in general, it's very hard to properly say that you can for sure be that far apart from anybody. I mean, anybody could be walking down the street. I mean, to me, it almost just sounds like a de facto ban on smoking altogether. But the ban, which does not include vapes or electronic cigarettes, is part of a clampdown focused more on pollution than health, according to the city council, which passed a clean air bill in 2020 that included strict bans on smoking, responsible for 7% of all emissions in Milan and its suburbs. I can see the point there. I will say, though, I can't help but wonder, is smoking, that 7% difference, really going to be all that big of a difference in the end? If the argument were coming from the health perspective, I would see the argument being made maybe a little bit easier. For example, anytime a person has to go to the hospital in Italy or they go to a doctor, unless they're on the private system, then it does cost the government, well, really, therefore, the taxpayer, money. So I could understand it from that perspective, but saying it's purely an emissions thing, then that almost sounds like maybe not even the most ideal way of going for things. I mean, for example, think about how many cars would be in the city and how many people are driving in and out of the city and around the city. Yeah, granted, you have ZTLs and all this kind of stuff, but even then, I mean, if you're looking at making a change, cigarette smoke doesn't seem like the first place to me to make those kinds of changes. I haven't looked at the official documentation from this and what the government has actually said in Milan, but I can't help but wonder, just based on the phrasing of this article, it says focused more on pollution than health. But if health is part of it, then vapes and electronic cigarettes, I mean, these still put out something. Is it the same? No, but it's still, from a health perspective, there's still plenty that a person will inhale and exhale. Maybe the smell isn't quite as noticeable, but it's still, you have some of these particles and the nicotine and all these other things flying through the air. But of course, I ain't no doctor, so maybe I'm just absolutely speaking about nonsense here, but somehow this doesn't even make sense to me. And then I also want to make sure it's clear, I wouldn't call myself a smoker. Like, I'm not a cigarette smoker. It's not like I've never smoked in my life, and it's not like I'm against smoking completely either. I don't think it's a healthy habit. However, I'm not opposed to the occasional cigar. I mean, like once, like a couple times a year or less. I'm also not the type, absolutely not the type, that would keep a cookie jar of Latin American cigars and have a collection of Italian aromatic and non-aromatic cigars. That wouldn't be me. No, I'm not that kind of guy. Or am I? But jokes aside, I'm actually not much of a smoker. On occasion, like, you're in a situation where it's enjoyable, but to actually ban smoking completely in public places, this to me, it doesn't make total sense. I get it, but it's just one of those things that I think people should have a choice if they do it. Although I would say that I could understand if there are maybe certain zones, like you can smoke within this 30-meter area, 10-meter area, that like, or if you're going to a cafe that there's a smoking section, there's a non-smoking section, but to almost completely outright ban it just seems strange to me. And there are certain laws that keep popping up that, to me, look like Italy is moving in a direction, but I can't tell what that direction is. And then even with the citizenship laws that have been changing over the last years and things that have been kind of moving around and shifting in Italy, it feels like things are moving in a particular way. I just don't know where that direction is. And even if it's, maybe I'm completely wrong here, but it feels like there are changes that are happening in Italy for sure. To say that vapes and electronic cigarettes are not included in this, just something seems strange to me about that. I mean, vapes I find a lot more annoying than cigarettes in some instances, because like you have people that are like blowing these big puffy clouds, and then all of a sudden you just have like this, your nostrils are filled with this sweet, syrupy cherryness or chocolate or whatever it might be. I mean, even I remember being on a bus in Italy one time, there was this kid in there that was vaping, and like the whole bus smelled like his vape. And so it's like, if you're smelling the vape, then clearly you're also pulling in that nicotine. And even though I might enjoy the occasional cigar, I'm not wanting to consume nicotine on a regular basis, even if there are some potential benefits, but that's another subject for another day. But going back to the article, the complete ban on smoking outdoors is the second part of the clean air strategy, which started with banning lighting up in playgrounds, bus stops, and outdoor sport facilities in 2021. I'm with it. Like, I think that when it comes down to it, to ban it at playgrounds, definitely. Bus stops, sure, whatever. Sports facilities, okay, fine. I mean, I get it, but I still don't understand how this will really make that much of a difference in the city's air quality. Granted, we have to look at Milan and look at where it is in Italy and what the area is like and how even geographically things look, because it's in this large valley and you have the Alps not too far behind. I mean, even I remember one time as a kid going to Como, and you can see along the whole way just this smog just hanging in the air, not even moving, just thick, sitting there. And it was over the lake, kind of, it felt like the mountains around the lake as well were keeping it trapped in, that there was just no circulation of air, that it wasn't blowing through. It was just held in place by the mountains. Like maybe it somehow moved its way up from Milan into this lake area and was just being held there. And this was actually one of the reasons why, for me, I never really considered the idea of moving to Como. Beautiful place, but it just seemed like it was getting a lot of smog from Milan, which was definitely not attractive to me. But getting back to the article, the bill bill is meant to improve the quality of the city's air to protect the health of citizens, including protection from passive smoking in public places. If it's protection from passive smoking in public places, then why are vapes and e-cigarettes still on that list and still allowed? Okay, that's fine. I made my points there. I will not repeat them. But while the ban started at midnight on January 1st, I mean, that just seems like an interesting time to put that into effect and to really enforce the law. New Year's Eve/day, first hours of the new year when people are probably smoking like chimneys, at least those who are out having fun. I have a hard time imagining how this is going to be enforced. I mean, are people probably going to get fined? Yeah, but this is just, again, something seems strange about this to me. I don't know what it is, though. I can't put my finger on it. But anyway, getting back to the article, Lino Stopani, president of Public Business Federation, FIP Confcommercio, called the ban symbolic and hard to enforce since business owners are not compelled to do so. Yeah, I mean, that's a very fair point. I mean, if the business owners are not compelled to stop the smoking, then, I mean, should it be their position that they actually have to be enforcing these? I mean, we saw during lockdowns or during the easing of lockdowns that, yeah, business owners, at least if I remember correctly, that they had to enforce the masks and wearing of masks and so on. But the article continues on saying, without adequate controls, the ordinances risk remaining measures aimed more at raising awareness than solving. The positive aspect is that public businesses are not imposed the role of carabinieri, leaving the burden of checks to competent authorities, Stopani said in a statement referring to the local police. This is a provision with several critical issues for us. It is a provision that will not have the desired effects. It has some regulatory weaknesses. It probably also creates a bit of confusion in its application, but we are not making a battle out of it. The ban will impact attendees of the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics in 2026. This is something I've also heard in some other articles and some news stories, that it seems as though this is coming ahead of the Winter Olympics in 2026. And that maybe part of the reason why this is coming into effect is also Italy trying to show to the world maybe a certain quality of life or a certain something, or that like Italians maybe don't smoke as much as people think they do. I can't say I quite understand the connection to the Olympics, but maybe it's just before the Olympics, a city wanting to try and clean up things as much as they can, or say that they're cleaning up things. And maybe like what was said above, maybe it's just symbolic. But going on, smoking has been prohibited in all indoor spaces in Italy since 2005, and several cities have added regional regulations, though implementation is rare. So this also makes me wonder what's going to happen with the implementation of this and how it's actually going to be carried out. And more importantly, if there's going to be any fines carried out based on this. And in Turin, it is forbidden to smoke in front of children or pregnant women while outside. Hey, fair enough. I agree with that. That I think is definitely fair, but in front of, what does in front of mean? I mean, is this a meter, 5 meters, 10 meters? What's the rule there? But the article finishes off by saying, in Rome, many restaurants allow smoking at outdoor tables, and all major Italian airports have smoking rooms inside the terminals. This is actually quite common across Europe, that you have sometimes these booths that you can go into, or special rooms that you can go into. I mean, I had to fly through Zurich earlier this year, and they had like this whole lounge that was packed to the brim. I'd never seen such a big smoking lounge in an airport before. It was almost impressive. But the questions I have are, is this anything meaningful? Is this going to bring any type of change? Should any type of change be brought? I don't know. I'm not saying that even that would be the case. I just can't help but wonder, especially with something like this that's just kind of so out of the blue seemingly. I mean, okay, maybe it's been in the plans for a while, and I mean, clearly it's part of the second phase of this clean air and blah, 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 blah. But a 7% difference, I mean, I can't help but wonder what the measurements are as of December 31st of 2024, and what those same measurements will be December 31st of 2025. Is there actually going to be any meaningful difference? And that's something that I'm going to be very curious about in a year from now. What are the measurements? What are the differences? Has it actually hit that 7% mark at that estimated level? Are some people possibly going to stop smoking because of this? You never know. It could be. I mean, if you make something annoying enough to do and put enough roadblocks in place, I think it would stop many people. But also, I can't help but wonder if it would affect the business of bars or cafes or anything like that. that where you commonly see people smoking. It's not like you see people always walking and smoking. I mean, I feel like I see people more at a specific place drinking a coffee or drinking a cocktail and smoking. It's not like you don't see people smoking while they're walking. It's just that there's also this enjoyment of these things as well that comes along with it. And will it just stay with cigarettes? Is it going to go into vapes or electronic cigarettes? I mean, electronic cigarettes, I can't say I have a problem with, because I don't say I have a problem with smoking inherently to begin with. I may not find the smell of cigarette smoke pleasant, but it's not something that I necessarily think about so much. And maybe it's because I've gotten used to it over the years being in Europe, that smoking just seems to be so much more prevalent. And even among my American friends, the amount of people who actually smoke is a tiny amount, but my friends who are from Europe, probably higher amount of people who actually smoke and don't think much about it. But anyway, I'm curious what you guys have to say down in the comment section below here on YouTube. Of course, this is an open conversation. I'm not saying I have all the right answers or even all the right questions, and maybe I'm wrong about certain things. And feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, or if you're listening to this as an audio-only podcast, feel free to come over to the YouTube episode and to leave your thoughts there. Of course, also, thank you to those of you who help to make these episodes possible on a regular basis through RafaelDiFuria.com/Patreon, which helps on a monthly basis, as well as the thanks button here on YouTube, as well as RafaelDiFuria.com/support. Anyway, Happy New Year yet again. May you all have a wonderful, healthy, happy, and joyous 2025 with only wonderful things ahead. I hope you all stay safe and healthy out there, and I will see you all next time for another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Later.